Hey, time travelers and truth chasers, grab your metaphorical shovels because we're digging deep into the past today. Forget history books. The brutal act of scalping wasn't some savage invention of Native Americans, as pop culture claims. It was a global practice rooted in ancient warfare across continents, only to be industrialized by colonial powers into a profitable engine of extermination that still haunts our understanding of conquest. In this episode, we'll journey from shadowy prehistoric graves in Sweden to the blood-soaked battlefields of colonial America, uncovering eyewitness horrors, hidden motives behind bounties, and the resilient stories of those who fought back, promising revelations that flipped the script on who the real barbarians were. If that sparks your curiosity, hit play and let's unravel this together. Oh, and subscribe to History Unveiled for more eye-opening dives into the forgotten corners of our world. All right, let's kick things off with the dawn of humanity's darker side, unearthing the ancient roots in the old world. Long before anyone dreamed of crossing oceans, scalping was already etching its mark on human conflict, far from the American frontiers we often associate it with. Imagine a windswept steppe in Eurasia around 800 BC, where a Scythian nomad, fierce, tattooed, and mounted on a swift horse, charges into battle against Persian invaders. After felling an enemy, he doesn't just claim a weapon. He kneels, draws a sharp blade, and carefully peels the scalp from the skull, the hair matted with blood, as a trophy to hang from his bridle. This isn't some made-up tale to thrill you. It's drawn straight from Herodotus, the ancient Greek historian writing in the 5th century BC, who described the Scythians as scalping foes to prove their prowess, tanning the skins into quivers or even napkins for their kings. Herodotus, often called the father of history, painted vivid scenes of these Pontic steppe warriors kneading human hides with their hands after scraping them clean with ox ribs, turning them supple for everyday use. What drove them? Power, prestige. They believed they captured the enemy's essence, denying them honor in death. Rhetorically, could this have been the spark that spread scalping's flame across cultures? Or was it just one thread in a global tapestry of trophy-taking? Fast forward, or rather, rewind a bit further, to even older evidence in Europe. Archaeological digs in Sweden have uncovered Mesolithic hunter-gatherer remains from around 6000 BC, where skulls bear telltale cut marks around the hairline, suggesting scalping as part of ritualistic violence or territorial disputes. Picture a small band of foragers by a misty lake, clashing over scarce resources after a harsh winter. One survivor, perhaps a young scout, emerges with the enemy's scalp as proof of survival. A subtle fictional flourish, inspired by the sparse bones that whisper of desperation. By the Iron Age, around 500 BC, sites in southern Siberia reveal more definitive cases. 3 skulls from a cemetery show precise incisions, indicating scalping among nomadic groups, possibly as a way to humiliate rivals or harness their strength in the afterlife. And it's not just the East. In medieval Europe, Anglo-Saxons and Franks were at it too, scalping during 9th century raids, as chronicled in historical texts, turning battlefields into gruesome harvests. These acts weren't mindless brutality. They were symbolic, tying into beliefs about the soul residing in the head. What if these European practices sailed across the Atlantic centuries later, influencing the New World? Hold that thought. It's a suspenseful bridge we'll cross soon. Shifting continents now, pre-Columbian echoes in the Americas. Before Columbus ever set foot on these shores, scalping was already woven into the fabric of indigenous warfare, but not as the widespread tradition myths suggest. Let's transport ourselves to the dusty plains of South Dakota in 1325 AD, amid a devastating drought that's turned allies into enemies. At Crow Creek, a fortified village of Arikara ancestors becomes a slaughter ground. Nearly 500 bodies, including women and children, piled in a mass grave, their skulls scored with circular cuts from stone. Tools, clear archaeological proof of scalping. Imagine a desperate defender, bow in hand, watching raiders breach the walls. In the chaos, victors claim scalps, not for money, but as spiritual trophies, perhaps to prevent the dead from haunting them or to boast around campfires. This site, excavated by Smithsonian experts, dates back to the Mississippian culture, showing scalping as selective, tied to resource wars rather than routine savagery. Further south, in the archaic period of the Mississippi Valley, around 1000 BC, more evidence emerges. Skeletal remains with healed scalp wounds, hinting that some victims survived the ordeal. Their scars a lifelong reminder of close calls. Among southeastern tribes, like the Timucua in Florida, French explorer Jacques Lemoyne's 1564 engravings depict warriors using reeds to scalp foes, a practice predating Europeans by centuries. But here's the nuance. Scalping wasn't universal among native groups. It varied by region and purpose. Plains tribes, like the Sioux, took scalps from living enemies for ultimate honor, dancing with them in ceremonies, while others preferred heads or ears. Emotionally, think of a young Cheyenne warrior, heart racing after his first raid, preserving a scalp to honor his ancestors, a personal story rooted in real cultural accounts that humanizes what we often see as barbaric. Why did it persist? In small-scale societies, it deterred aggression and affirmed identity, yet unanswered. Was this independent invention, or did ancient migrations carry the idea from Asia? Archaeology leans toward parallelism, but the mystery lingers, keeping us hooked. The colonial catalyst, European arrival, and the shift to systematic violence. When Europeans hit the Americas in the 1490s, they didn't discover scalping. They recognized it from their own bloody past and quickly co-opted it. Jacques Cartier, probing the St. Lawrence in 1535, journaled his shock at Iroquoian leaders displaying dried scalps on poles as warnings. Eyewitness gold from primary records. But instead of recoiling, colonists adapted. By 1641, Dutch governor Willem Kieft in New Netherland offered bounties for Raritan scalps after a skirmish, turning ritual into reward. Picture a cash-strapped settler, musket slung over shoulder, slipping into the forest, not for glory, but guilders, bringing back a dripping trophy to the fort, where clerks tallied it like livestock. This policy, archived in New Netherland documents, marked the start of scalping as commerce, escalating intertribal feuds into proxy wars for European gain. As settlements spread, the English amplified it during King Philip's War in 1675. Massachusetts Bay Colony proclaimed bounties for Wampanoag scalps, inspiring raids like Captain Mosley's ambush on a native camp, where 10 scalps, including those of non-combatants, were claimed for pay. Eyewitness reports from the era, preserved in colonial ledgers, describe militiamen parading trophies to discourage resistance, a euphemism for terror. What hidden motives lurked? Land clearance for farms, of course, but also racial dehumanization, viewing natives as vermin to be eradicated. In Pennsylvania, the 1764 Paxton Boys massacre saw settlers scalp Lenape families, then march on Philadelphia demanding more bounties. Moravian mission records capture survivors' anguish, families torn apart in dawn raids, subtly fictionalizing a moment. Envision a Lenape mother clutching her child in a smoke-filled cabin, hearing the axes splinter the door, her final scream echoing the real horrors that fueled cycles of vengeance. Pushing westward, the bounty boom from policy to profit in the expanding frontier. By the 1700s, bounties were institutionalized. The 1755 Phipps Proclamation in Massachusetts offered £40 for adult male scalps, thousands in today's dollars during the French and Indian War, targeting French-allied tribes. Historians at Yale tally over 60 such proclamations in New England alone, creating a business of killing Indians. In the Southwest, Mexican authorities in Chihuahua 1849 paid for Apache scalps, leading to frauds where innocent hairs were submitted. Ledgers show payouts dwarfing actual threats, hinting at profiteering. John Glanton's gang, chronicled in traveler journals, hunted scalps for pesos, turning on Mexicans when Apache proved scarce, a suspenseful what if. What if greed overrode alliances, blurring lines between hunter and hunted? California's gold rush era brought state-funded militias scalping Yuki and other tribes, though recent scholarship debunks statewide scalp bounties as myth, clarifying local reimbursements for expeditions. Eyewitnesses from the 1850s describe volunteers waving bloody scalps as souvenirs, emotions running high in camps where gold fever mixed with fear. Further north, in Oregon, volunteer companies in the mid-1800s scalped en masse, with accounts of entire villages razed. One heart-wrenching story, inspired by real testimonies. A Modoc elder, hiding in lava beds, watches his kin fall to bounty hunters, their scalps traded for liquor, a fictional lens on documented atrocities that questions colonial progress. But resistance brewed. Indigenous retaliation, turning the blade back on colonizers. Native nations didn't invent scalping, but they mastered it in defense. During the Beaver Wars, Iroquois warriors scalped English settlers to take back their land. They used this shocking act to strike fear, just like the Europeans did. Imagine a Haudenosaunee scout whispering ancestral prayers over a taken scalp. Believing it absorbed the enemy's power, a blend of real spiritual beliefs and storytelling to evoke empathy. In the plains, Sioux and Cheyenne adapted, scalping cavalry in rituals that honored pre-contact ways while countering invasion. The Sand Creek Massacre of 1864 flips the narrative. U.S. troops under Chivington scalped 200 Cheyenne mutilating bodies. Black kettles. Survivors' congressional testimonies describe soldiers flaunting trophies. A shocking reversal that exposes hypocrisy. What if this retaliation prolonged wars? Or was it inevitable in the face of genocide? Suspense builds, hidden alliances between tribes formed, scalping becoming a symbol of unity against erasure. Myths unmasked, how history got hijacked. Pop culture, westerns like The Searchers, dime novels painted scalping as native barbarism to justify conquest, ignoring its ancient global roots and colonial amplification. Academic texts debunk this. Linguistic evidence shows native terms for scalping predate English, and prehistoric skeletons confirm independence. Eyewitness films and books perpetuated lies, but truths emerge, like how Europeans taught scalping to some allies, though most knew it. Picture a 19th century classroom, teacher spinning yarns of wild Indians to wide-eyed kids, omitting bounty ledgers, a fictional scene rooted in educational biases that sustained complicity. Why the flip? To excuse genocide by labeling victims savage, a motive that still taints perceptions. Finally, lingering shadows, the enduring legacy and unanswered questions. Scalping's scars run deep, devastated populations, cultural trauma, place names like Lovewell Pond honoring hunters. Modern efforts, like California's 2019 Truth and Healing Council, seek acknowledgement, but myths persist. Impacts, ongoing stereotypes, but also resilience in tribal stories reclaiming history. Survivors like Hannah Duston, who scalped her Abenaki captors in 1697, blur victim-villain lines. Wrapping this up, the truth behind scalping's origins, from ancient rituals in Scythia and Crow Creek to colonial bounties fueling genocide, teaches us that power corrupts practices, rewriting history to hide atrocities. It highlights how violence cycles when unchecked, masking greed as policy. Could echoes resound in modern inequalities? Or was there an outside influence, like migration, spreading the act globally? What if admitting this heals divides? Share what shocked you most, any family ties to these eras. Comment below, like for more truths, and subscribe to History Unveiled to keep the past alive. See you in the next unraveling.